What was meant to be another thrilling chapter in her adventurous life took a horrifying turn, claiming the life of one of the most passionate kayakers on the rapids, Shannon Christy. Join us as we delve into the details of Shannon's final day. Today, we unravel the tragic and mysterious circumstances that unfolded in the treacherous waters of the Great Falls, and how a race intended to showcase her extraordinary skills became her final horrifying moments on Earth. This is the story of Shannon Christy, a passionate young kayaker whose life was as vibrant and boisterous as the waters she loved to conquer. Her final challenge was to navigate the notorious rapids of the Great Falls, a journey expected to be a demonstration of her mastery and spirit. In a sport dominated by men, she wanted to throw her hat in the ring of the race and demonstrate her exceptional skill, but she never returned. As we peel back the layers of Shannon's last moments, we uncover a tale of raw ambition, overwhelming challenges, and the ultimate price of pushing the limits. From the placid lakes of South Carolina to the wild currents of the Potomac, Shannon Christy was no stranger to water. Born with a spirit as free as the rivers she paddled, Shannon's journey into the heart of kayaking began at an early age. Growing up in a family that cherished outdoor adventures, it was on the water where Shannon found her true calling. As a teenager, Christy spent summers as a rafting guide in North Carolina. By the time she entered college, she had not only mastered the serene waters near her home, but also sought the adrenaline rush of more challenging rapids. She took up kayaking while studying at West Carolina University, developing her skills at clinics, and this propelled her into the heart of the extreme kayaking community. No one could quite figure out what drove Shannon to pick up kayaking, but like others before her, it quickly became her favorite sport. "I kayak because I love the sport," she once said in an interview. "Kayaking takes you to places that most of society will never see. I love the act of kayaking for what it is." In many ways, her love for the sport was infectious, drawing others to the riverbanks to watch her navigate the frothy torrents with grace and precision. Shannon's prowess on the water and skillful handling of her kayak, combined with her undeniable charisma, made her a beloved figure in the kayaking community and an attractive partner for outdoor brands. Major sponsors sought her out, eager to align with her image and skill. Despite her rising fame, Shannon remained humble and focused, grounded by her dedication to the sport and its community. Her friends and fellow kayakers described her as down-to-earth and genuinely passionate about kayaking, not just as a sport, but as a way of life. If you're like me, you might know next to nothing about kayaking. To the uninformed, a quick Google search would superficially mention two things. Kayaking is about water and paddling. But beneath the surface, there's much more to this dynamic sport. At its core, kayaking involves navigating through water using a small, narrow watercraft and a double-bladed paddle. It's a sport that can vary dramatically, from tranquil paddles on calm lakes to adrenaline-fueled descents down turbulent, fast-moving streams of water, known as whitewater rapids. Kayaking comes in several forms, each requiring different skills and catering to various water environments. While most recreational kayakers looking for a peaceful day on the water enjoy paddles on calm waters such as lakes or slow-moving rivers, there are some who want more. For those like Shannon who crave more intensity, whitewater kayaking is the pinnacle of the sport. This form challenges paddlers with rapids, requiring quick reflexes, advanced paddling techniques, and an intimate understanding of water dynamics. Whitewater kayakers navigate through turbulent rivers, dodging obstacles, and sometimes even taking on waterfalls in races and competitions. The stakes were high, the currents unforgiving, but for Shannon Christy, the allure of conquering the relentless rapids was a compelling draw in the world of extreme kayaking. In her early 20s, Shannon was already a familiar face on the competitive kayaking circuit, navigating through the water's chaos with a precision that belied her age. Despite the inevitable capsizes and near misses, her determination to rise through the ranks never wavered. In this extreme sport, the kayaker must successfully navigate a set of designated rapids to qualify for a score in whitewater competitions. For whitewater kayaking competition events, the kayaker must maneuver through a course of turbulent rapids marked by gates. The course is timed from the moment the kayaker crosses the starting line until they pass the finish, fighting against both the current and the clock. The kayaker's paddle must not touch the gates, nor can the kayak itself make contact with designated no-touch zones. Each run is timed, and penalties are added for any touches or missed gates. To score, the kayaker must not only complete the course within a competitive time, but must also demonstrate control, technical skill, and an ability to harness the river's power. If the kayaker completes the course flawlessly, they're scored based on their speed, precision, and technique. Failure to navigate the course correctly or capsizing results in no score or significant penalties. The mastery required to excel in kayaking is not just about physical core and upper body strength, but also mental challenges. Each rapid presents a unique challenge, demanding split-second decisions in roaring waters, where you can barely hear yourself think. The thrill of a flawless run through nature's most daunting obstacles is the essence of kayaking. Shannon was very aware of the dangers she faced with each descent. She was preparing to navigate a section of river known for its ferocity. To give you an example of how this might feel, it's similar in intensity to dropping over 3 football fields stacked end to end in a sheer rapid rush. Like the highest roller coaster you've ever been on, only no tracks, no seatbelt, no knowing you're going to make it to the end alive. Generally, the wilder the rapids, the greater the risk of danger. For starters, there's the possibility of being overpowered by the water's force. As a kayaker descends into more challenging sections of the river, the power of the water increases. Venture deep enough into these waters, and the force of the rapids can capsize a kayak or pin a paddler against the rocks, like a foot crushing an empty soda can with intense pressure. But the dangers aren't confined to external forces alone. Paddling through rough waters poses a variety of risks to the human body in different ways. Unlike a calm river, the dynamic forces of a rapid can set in swiftly and with minimal warning. When you're pushing through powerful rapids, the intense effort can make your body react unexpectedly. Fatigue can affect your muscle function and slow down your reaction times, turning a normally manageable paddle into a potential fight for survival. One peculiar effect of extreme exertion is a condition often likened to confusion or disorientation. Experienced kayakers call this feeling brain fog, just like the symptoms of nitrogen narcosis in deep-sea diving. Imagine trying to maintain control and precise navigation when your body feels sluggish and your mind is muddled. In the middle of rough rapids, this is obviously a huge problem. This severe disorientation can lead to poor decision-making, delayed reactions, and potentially catastrophic errors. Another significant risk is the threat of getting trapped. In kayaking, particularly in tight, rocky rapids, there's always a danger that you might get stuck or pinned underwater before you even know what's going on. Rapid changes in water flow can trap a kayaker against obstacles, leading to severe injuries or worse. Kayakers often take breaks in calm spots in the river, much like divers make decompression stops. These breaks are crucial, especially in long or very challenging sections, because they allow kayakers to rest and prepare for what's ahead. Ranked as one of the promising young talents on the national kayaking scene, Shannon's name had risen with potential stardom in the sport. Tragically, fate had a different script in store. The unpredictable nature of the waters she loved would prove to be a fatal adversary. It was July 11th, 2013, during a routine run at the Great Falls on the Potomac, where Shannon faced her greatest challenge. Shannon was in Maryland for the 26th Annual Potomac River Festival, an event which was supposed to feature a race attended by some of the nation's best kayakers. She had never run this specific race and was eager to prove herself against her male competitors. In an even more heartbreaking twist of fate, 2 days before Shannon Christy would take her last kayak run, she had been featured in a profile for 60 Minutes, where a camera crew filmed her on the exact spot that would take her life. She, like other kayakers, was preparing to take on the Great Falls of the Potomac River, a notorious section known for its challenging and often treacherous rapids. Known as one of the most difficult whitewater courses on the East Coast, Great Falls were ranked Class 5, which meant they were extremely difficult and carried high risks. Class 5 rapids are characterized by long, obstructed, or very violent rapids, which expose a paddler to added risk. They often require precise maneuvering under complex conditions and are recommended only for expert paddlers. In kayaking, rapids are classified from Class 1, easy, to Class 6, extreme and exploratory limits, with Class 5 being one step below the most dangerous. These waters typically feature large waves, continuous rapids, large rocks and hazards, and potential large waterfall drops that demand strong paddling skills and excellent craft control. The conditions in Class 5 rapids can challenge even the most experienced of whitewater adventurers, often requiring precise strokes, strong nerves, and a good sense of timing to navigate successfully. With her experience running challenging rapids, Shannon Christy understood just how quickly things could go wrong in the fierce Class 5+ waters of the Great Falls on the Potomac. She was invited to the race by Jason Beeks of Poolsville, an experienced kayaker whose company, Active Nature, was hosting the event. It was also being filmed by Steve Fisher, a renowned kayaker and filmmaker from South Africa, highlighting the thrill and beauty of extreme whitewater paddling. Beeks was well known in the kayaking community for his strict standards and expert techniques. He only paddled with the best. He hadn't kayaked with Shannon before, but had heard about her skills. Watching her navigate the easier parts of the river, he was immediately struck by her precise and practiced moves. She was clearly ready for the tougher challenges ahead. As the race day approached, Beeks took Shannon through the course layout. He pointed out the center lines, the route they would take, and especially warned her about the subway chute, part of the dangerous 5 fingers at the bottom. A wrong move there could be fatal. Shannon, to her credit, listened intently, repeating back the critical details, her focus sharp. This race featured one of the steepest kayak runs in the world, and any mistake could be fatal. On the preliminary runs, Shannon excelled. She tackled the Great Falls' treacherous waters with such skill and control that even Beeks and Fisher were impressed. Each run was smooth, showcasing her readiness and determination. The tension was high. Everyone watching knew the river was unforgiving, and even the smallest slip could turn disastrous. But Shannon handled it like the expert she was, building anticipation for the main event, where she would truly test her mettle against the river's wild heart. On July 11th, 2013, a couple days before the showdown, Shannon and her coach, Jason Beeks, considered taking a rest day. But the call of the river was too strong to ignore, especially when Will Sieber, a fellow racer and seasoned young kayaker, reached out. Fresh from work and eager for the challenge, Sieber's message was clear. "Want to go for a race?" Christy responded with an enthusiastic yes, and she and Beeks, along with their filmmaker, headed to the river for one final practice. Little did they know that for one of them, it would, in fact, be a final race. They all met on the Maryland side of the Potomac River around 3:45 p.m., ready to tackle the falls. After a brief discussion, Steve Fisher had already positioned himself on the Virginia side of the river to film the action, particularly focusing on Beeks navigating the Maryland side of the rapids, while Sieber and Shannon took the other end of the rapids. The water was unusually high that day, swelling from recent rains, making the already daunting Great Falls even more dangerous. Despite the conditions, Shannon's enthusiasm spiked. She was ready to tackle the churning water once again on a run she'd already successfully done several times before. As Shannon launched her kayak into the waves of the Potomac, the river's stillness was deceptive, a stark contrast to the challenge that lay ahead. She sliced through the water with the ease of a seasoned pro, her strokes rhythmic and powerful. The river responded, its surface breaking into ripples that danced around her kayak. The initial stretch was smooth, almost serene. As she approached the infamous 5 fingers, the section whispered about in kayaking circles for its ruthless currents and lurking dangers. Shannon went first into the first drop of the center lines of the falls, named Grace Under Pressure. From Will's vantage point above, her entry into the waterfall looked normal. Will followed approximately 15 seconds behind her, only to find no sign of her at the base of the waterfall. Will proceeded into the second section of the center line's ledges, thinking that Shannon had paddled down, as if practicing a continuous run. But as Shannon, further down, entered the heart of the notorious section, known as the middle finger, the river seemed to awaken fully. Without warning, a powerful current surged like a beast from the depths, grabbing hold of her kayak with an unseen ferocity. It was an ambush, and Shannon, caught off guard, wrestled with her paddle for control. The kayak wobbled violently under the river's mighty grip, tipping dangerously to one side. Shannon's battle with the river intensified. The currents here were known traitors, calm one moment and deadly the next. As Shannon fought to stabilize her kayak, her expertise was evident, but so was the river's intent. Suddenly, the very worst unfolded. Shannon's kayak capsized. The river, in its relentless assault, flipped her over, plunging her into the icy, churning waters. Shannon disappeared below the surface, her paddle flailing in a desperate attempt to right herself. When you're upside down in a kayak, your body is trapped inside the boat. The only way to get back to the surface is to leverage your paddle against the water to flip yourself 180 degrees vertically, or to forcibly remove your entire body from the kayak and swim to the surface. I can't imagine how much stress and anxiety this would cause in calm waters, let alone in the force of whitewater rapids. Time seemed to stand still, yet rush forward all at once. Shannon reemerged, gasping for air, her face a mask of pain and shock. She had pulled herself completely out of her kayak and tried to swim, to fight her way through the water that now seemed to want to claim her. Each stroke was a battle against the overwhelming force pulling her towards the subway chute, a known death trap. As Will himself was approaching the final waterfall of center lines, the middle finger, Shannon appeared in front of him in the water, swimming out of her kayak in full paddling gear. Sieber, propelled by a mix of adrenaline and dread, paddled with all his might. His strokes were frantic, driven by the urgent need to reach Shannon before the river could drag her any further. His heart pounded against his chest as he started to navigate the next section towards her. As Shannon struggled to regain her bearings, the merciless current funneled her towards the gaping tunnel of the subway chute. Sieber's shouts were lost in the roar of the river, his paddle slicing through the water as he raced against the inevitable. Shannon got helplessly swept down the slide, Hollywood Boulevard, before the fast-moving currents sucked Shannon into Subway. Will furiously paddled down the middle finger in an attempt to rescue her, but Shannon had vanished beneath the churning waters, swallowed by the river. What was supposed to be a calm practice day quickly turned into a desperate rescue effort. For agonizing minutes, there was no sight of her. Moments later, her personal flotation device and helmet surfaced, but still no sighting of her. Meanwhile, on the other end, Jason Beeks stood on the rocky banks of the Maryland side of the Potomac, his gaze fixed on the turbulent waters of the center lines. A sense of unease began to take hold of the experienced kayaker. He was supposed to be coordinating with Steve Fisher, positioned on the opposite bank, ready to capture the kayak run on film. Instead, his attention was drawn to a worrying sight. Will Sieber and Jordan Poffenberger, two well-known figures in the kayaking community, standing unusually still near the notorious subway section. Shannon Christy was nowhere to be seen. Concerned, Beeks used the universal kayaker's signal for "Are you okay?" patting the top of his head. There was no response. Silence hung in the air, punctuated only by the distant hum of a U.S. Park Police helicopter, a sound that in these parts often meant bad news. Beeks's heart sank as he realized something had gone terribly wrong. Without waiting for a reply, Beeks launched his kayak into the water, his strokes swift and purposeful. As he reached Sieber and Poffenberger, the grim news was confirmed. Shannon Christy had been swept into the subway. This section of the river was infamous for its treacherous currents and hidden rock sieves that could trap anything or anyone. Meanwhile, Fisher, initially unaware of the unfolding crisis, was adjusting his camera when he noticed a cluster of tourists pointing towards an overturned red kayak in the water. His professional instincts kicked in as he scanned the area, but it was an overheard conversation between a tourist and a park ranger that clarified the full extent of the situation. The kayaker had been pulled into the deadly subway. Knowing the risks all too well, Fisher quickly gathered his rescue gear, ropes, webbing, and carabiners, and made his way down to the river's edge. It wasn't until a breathless Beeks arrived that Fisher learned the missing kayaker was Shannon. The scene was set for a frantic rescue effort. Each man knew that time was of the essence and that the river showed no mercy. As they prepared to venture into the raging waters, the community of kayakers around them came together, ready to support the rescue in any way they could. Any thought of upcoming competition was suspended for the time being, as men sought to rescue their fellow kayaker. A dusk fell on the Potomac River. The urgent whispers of the current seemed to echo the growing desperation of the rescue teams. On the riverside, Montgomery County Fire and Rescue Service Battalion Chief Kent Malalu, with decades of swift water rescues under his belt, recognized immediately the severity of the situation as reports streamed in. Despite the usual calm of the river, the recent heavy rains had transformed the waters into a fierce flood. Malalu's team, a specialized unit trained to navigate the deceptive tranquility of these waters, was already mobilizing. The rescue boats, equipped with powerful motors, cut through the currents, heading towards the last known location of Shannon Christy. The officers aboard the first boat quickly gathered eyewitness accounts from Sieber and others scattered along the banks, piecing together the sequence of events that led to Shannon's disappearance. Fisher and Beeks, meanwhile, were undertaking their own frantic efforts to reach the subway. Despite the clear dangers, their determination was relentless. As seasoned kayakers, they knew the river's capricious moods better than most. Fisher, armed with his rescue gear, made impassioned pleas to the rescue teams, insisting on the urgency and his readiness to dive into the rescue efforts. However, the officers in charge hesitated. The risks were deemed too great, even for the experienced kayakers. The powerful, swollen state of the river presented unimaginable hazards, and the official stance was firm. No further lives should be risked. This decision, while frustrating to Fisher and Beeks, underscored the grim reality of the situation. As the hours ticked by, the likelihood of finding Shannon alive dwindled. Yet, the resolve to at least recover her body and provide closure to her family never faltered. To Fisher, getting Shannon's body, at the very least, back was non-negotiable. Alongside them, the night grew darker, and the river, relentless in its surge, seemed to hold its breath as both rescuers and kayakers continued their vigil. As twilight descended over the Potomac, the grim task at the subway reached its climax. Fisher and Beeks, with the aid of Jordan Poffenberger and other seasoned kayakers, had set up a complex system of ropes and pulleys known as a Z-drag on the slick, moss-covered rocks. Beeks, standing firm on a precarious ledge, coordinated the team with a calm born of desperate necessity. Below him, Fisher, tethered by ropes, inched closer to the lethal waters of the subway. Each movement carried danger, the powerful currents threatening to sweep him away as he searched for Shannon Christy's body. The tension among the team was sharp, each member extremely aware that any slip could lead to another tragedy. With the community of kayakers growing by the minute as word of the incident spread, Sieber returned to the scene, his face etched with anguish and determination. He joined the others in anchoring the ropes, his efforts focused on stabilizing Fisher, who was now reaching deep into the water. Fisher's hand, guided by years of rescue experience, finally grasped something firm. With careful coordination, the team began the delicate process of extracting Shannon from the water's grip. The pulley system creaked under the strain, each kayaker synchronized in their effort to retrieve their friend. As Shannon's body was finally freed from the depths and brought to the rocky shore, a profound silence fell over the group. The kayakers draped her with spray skirts, an impromptu shroud for a fallen comrade. Heads bowed, they stood in a tight circle. The only sounds, the rushing of the river, and the quiet sobs of those who had battled through the day. At 7:45 p.m., 4 hours after what started as just another day on the river, the ordeal came to an end. A rescue boat nearby, which had been standing by in grim vigil, sent over a body bag. The officers aboard treated the scene with a solemn respect, understanding the depth of the loss for the kayaking community. In reconstructing the sequence of events that likely led to Shannon Christy's tragic accident at Great Falls, we can see the critical errors and forces at play based on the nature of the falls and common kayaking challenges. As we mentioned, Shannon began her run at the falls by entering the series of drops known as Grace Under Pressure. This first waterfall is the toughest. This section is known for its difficulty and is often the site where, if a kayaker fails to execute a move precisely, it can lead to serious trouble downstream. Failing to make a technical paddling move there can create a cascade of increasingly serious problems. It's possible that Shannon's kayak might have veered slightly off her intended line. This misalignment could have been due to a miscalculation or a sudden shift in water dynamics, which are not uncommon in such turbulent environments. The misdirected path likely led Shannon's kayak to collide with a cluster of rocks situated about 3 feet to the left of the race line. The impact at this point, given the rapid's force, would have been severe enough to pin the kayak against these obstacles, restricting her ability to maneuver freely. With the kayak pinned and the relentless force of the water, it's probable that Shannon struggled to free herself. During this struggle, the violent water could have stripped her of critical safety gear, such as her helmet and personal flotation device, which would significantly lessen her chances of maintaining buoyancy and protecting against further impacts. It's also possible that Shannon capsized due to the force of water or impact with objects. Regardless of the exact scenario, we know that Shannon removed herself from her kayak. This one action that she took to try to save herself led to her final terrifying moments. The powerful current continued to exert pressure on Shannon, sweeping her downstream as she fought against the current and tried to stop herself from heading directly into the deadly section known as the subway. This area is notorious for its ability to trap objects and individuals due to its strong underwater currents and rock formations. Once caught in the subway, the combination of strong currents, lack of safety gear, and potential physical injuries made it impossible for Shannon to escape. As the rescue team discovered, Shannon had been catastrophically pinned underwater and trapped under rocks. Her official cause of death was traumatically ruled a drowning. The day after the tragic events at Great Falls, the scheduled race was canceled as the kayaking community turned to mourning and reflection. Instead, a memorial service was held to honor Shannon Christy's life and her passion for kayaking. It takes a special kind of resilience and passion to embrace the challenge she dedicated her life to, the thrilling encounter of human versus water in the world of extreme kayaking. And in the end, she was a woman who lived and left this earth in a way many would be envious of, doing what she loved. If you found this video informative or thought-provoking, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel to stay updated on more extreme stories. I'd love to hear your thoughts, so feel free to leave a comment down below, and I'll see you in the next one.